Check, 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 check. Hey there, Boots. Whoa, 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 whoa. Why is my chat not working? What's up, Josh? What's up, Geek? What's up, EJ? You guys can hear me good, right? Let me know. Can you hear me? Oh. Really? What am I humming? Are you with me? Somebody? Anybody? Let me know you can hear me. Ooh. Sorry, headphone users. No one's answering me. Okay, well, I can hear myself. No one's listening. I got 8 viewers and nobody's. Talk to me now. I can hear myself. No one's listening. I got 8 viewers and nobody's. There's my playback, so I can hear myself. Okay, let's see. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I think I'm using an old version of OBS. So that's why I'm getting some OBS and it's not starting when it's supposed to start. So, yeah, that's where we are. So we got some juicy topics for y'all tonight. Thank you for joining me. Come on in, folks. Come on in. All right, so there's that. Don't need that open. Close that. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with my. I don't think I can move it while I'm live. Let me see. Let's see if it'll work. Oh, there it is. All right, so maybe I can move it. Let's see if we can get this thing set right. So I was using a newer version. Well, right now I'm using a newer version of OBS. I think it's some kind of like beta thing. But ever since I like downloaded this thing, OBS has been giving me problems. So, all right, so that's working. I had it set up perfectly on my other setup. I think that's good. I think that's right. But the old OBS just isn't working. I started and it slows my computer down to hell and it doesn't work right. So I don't know what's going on with that. Let me see if I can. There we go. So that's no, that's still not under. Try again. Oh no, that's not right. All right, which image is it? All right, I'm just gonna leave it like that. The chat box is not showing. Oh no. Why are you screwing up? Stuff isn't labeled right either. A little bit more. All right, so all right, thanks Santiago. Yeah, I checked it on YouTube to see if it was working. So yeah, so I don't know what's up with my chat box. Why is it not working? Nope. Stop trying to make me select something that's not. All right, I'm just not gonna bother it because it doesn't want to act right. Actually, let me see. I can probably bring in the regular chat box. Just give me a second, guys. Let me. Since it's letting me do stuff live, which it didn't do before. All right, so I am looking to pop out the chat, copy and paste the link, put the chat back, and what's up, Jay? And let's see if this works. And add, what is it? Add browser. That would be media source. No, it has to be browser source. Add source. No, not existing. Add a new browser source. Is that gonna work? I hope so. No, not working. Can we, hold on, let's get rid of that. You guys are beta testing with me right now. Yes, we're removing that off of the screen. I'm just going to put the regular chat box in because I don't feel like doing this right now. So browser source, add source, new source. I don't know why it automatically for at least for browser, gives you, okay, my right click isn't working for some reason. All right, that should do it. Done. All right. So there, we at least have something. It looks terrible. It's not the way I wanted it to be, but see if I can maybe, oh no, that's not gonna work. Just put it back on top. All right, everything's screwing up now. All right, so we're gonna go with this for now, for this time, and there we go. That's not right, because that's covering up Streamlabs overlay. There. All right, so maybe now this goes there. No, stop. Wrong one. All right, browser source. No, that's not gonna. All right, I didn't do something right there. All right, that'll have to be good. At least it's something. Okay, let's get started here. What's messing around with this garbage? All right, I'll fix it next time to be nice and snazzy like it's supposed to be. So, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another Tea Talk. Our topics today are, what are our topics? Nintendo getting sued over faulty JoyCons, question mark. No Switch Pro coming, which I did a little video on, or it was part of a video I did, and some other stuff. All right, so wait, I don't really like that. If I could, oh, I'm on the wrong thing. Like, why won't it move? No, stop moving the wrong thing. Browser source. All right, that's not doing what it's supposed to be doing either. All right, we're just gonna, whoa, what happened? I lost visual on my TV for a second, on my monitor here. All right. Somebody just said, what's up? Who was that? That is Wound Up Penguin. What's up? All right, so I'm sure you guys have already heard. There is a, and I didn't really look into all the doodads and whatnot when it comes to the names and stuff, but there's a law firm of 3 guys, I can't remember their names, looking into basically starting an inquiry, like an investigation about the Switch Joy-Con situation, the floaty Joy-Con drift situation. And I really should have looked this up, but I didn't have a lot of time today. There is apparently, people looking into the Joy-Cons with their issues, because there's enough people. It seems like there's enough people who are having issues with the Joy-Cons, I being one of them. And it's not just, my one Switch here. This is actually a D-pad Ori one, whatever. But it's not just my Switch, because as some of you guys know, what is it? Fix that. All my kids' Switches too. There's 2 for them and 1 for me. Have some kind of weird Joy-Con issue, drift. So I'm at 100% as far as Joy-Con issues, and I know there's a lot of people that don't have the issue, and sometimes I feel like some of those people want to downplay, not downplay, that's not the right word, try to dismiss when people talk about these things happening and the issues they're having with their Switches, because it's like they go into ultimate protection mode for no reason. I mean, if people are having issues with a product, let them have an issue. What's up, Sardonic? Can't stay long. Just wanted to say hi. What's up, man? Thank you. um, it's people get defensive or something. It's weird, but if a lot of people are having an issue with the JoyCons, these bad boys right here, and I was really getting frustrated last night because if you guys have followed me on Twitter, you know that I'm getting back into, or I've gotten back into Breath of the Wild, and I play Breath of the Wild like this. Well, let me fix that. Like this right here. This is how I play Breath of the Wild because I like the HD rumble that's going on. I like aiming, you know, kind of like I'm playing with the Wii remote and nunchuck. So this is how I play Breath of the Wild. I like to point and aim with my, you know, my bow and arrow or whatever I'm using. So this is how I like to play. So maybe a lot of people out there don't play with their Joy-Cons that much, so they haven't put enough quote-unquote wear on them to have this issue. I also have a Pro controller. I modified mine. I put, this isn't the actual Splatoon one. I just bought the little Splatoon colored grips. Kind of hard to see with the light, but they're exactly the same. And you know, there's really no issues with this other than the D-pad. For some reason, the D-pad, when you go left and right, wants to act like you're pushing up. So that's a lot of issues that people have with the D-pad. So even the D-pad's not perfect on the Pro controller. So a lot of people don't have the issues, but a lot of people are having the issues. I've seen tons of people. I'm not gonna say that it's like Red Ring of Death amounts of people, which is probably like 60%. But it could be that high. I don't know. I mean, maybe a lot of people don't know because, like I said, a lot of people bought a Pro controller and they use this a lot. But if I buy something, I expect it to last more than a year and a half, you know, before something starts acting with it. And this is a Nintendo product. I've never, and I mean never, had an issue with my Nintendo products. Wish I could find my N64 controller. I'll show you guys right now. I would anyway if I knew where the hell it was. My N64 controller, and a lot of people complain about the joystick in it. Where is it? It should be close. To hell with it. A lot of people complain about the joystick wearing out or whatever. My day one, not day one. Let me take that back. I bought an extra one, in early '97. I bought an extra controller for my N64, and that's the one. I think what happened is I gave that controller, my day one controller, away. But so my 1997 Nintendo 64 controller, if you look at the joystick on that, it's almost, day one perfect. But I knew a lot of people had an issue with the joystick wearing out. That happens. So I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but that didn't happen to me. So from my experience, I've never had any hardware issues with my Nintendo systems. They all work beautifully still. Actually, my day one Wii has started to do some wonky stuff with the connection. I don't know if it's a connector or the port for the AV out. It's sometimes it doesn't want to work. Like it has to fidget with it a little bit. But that's that's the only issue I've had with it, and that's my day one Wii. And it's obviously one of my newer Nintendo consoles. My day one GameCube works perfectly still. N64, both of them. I bought another one in '99. I bought the jungle green one. Let's see if I can pull that up. It's a little dusty over here in the corner. Bought the jungle green N64 with Donkey Kong that came with it. Still have it. Oh, something's flipping around in there. And I just lost the door. But yeah, this works perfectly. Pretty much every Nintendo console or piece of hardware I bought from Nintendo works fine. And this is like the first, and this is major. Like, this is my controller. So what was happening with me, especially when I was playing last night, Breath of the Wild, was that you know, Link just starts walking on his own. You know, he wants to just walk, even when you stop. You lightly tap the joystick, and he starts walking, like hasn't, like it didn't come back, like, you know, it didn't go back to center, or the camera starts going. So both sticks, you know, this is what we use for the camera, and this is the analog stick for movement. They both have issues. Both of my kids' Joy-Cons have issues. My son actually has a Joy-Con. Actually, this might be it right here. I plugged it into my Switch to charge it. His Joy-Con won't even, like, it won't even recognize when you slide it in. And it's doing that on my Switch right now. Let me see if I can show you guys that it's not showing up. All right. Actually, now it's showing. All right, so it's making me look stupid. All right, but what happened is, you can tell from the right one, if you can see how it's grayed out. That's this one. That makes sense. But most of the time, this one will be doing that, even when it's slid in. So I don't know why it does that. It's very strange. Yeah, so that's an issue that we're all having. Joy-Con issues, and every time I do that, I lose my, so I can't see myself on screen. All right, there we go. And this is just very new, and so basically, you know, it's a law firm, so they're probably looking for money. I mean, obviously, you know, that's what businesses do. It's a law firm, and I don't think they're malicious. They see an opportunity because this is an issue, and so they're putting an investigation together to see if there's a possibility for class action. Now, what I want to come from this, I don't want to see Nintendo get sued over this. But what I want to come from this is them to recognize, or at least acknowledge, that this is a big enough issue that they need to fix them. So, like, I'm not going to buy another Joy-Con or even another Switch, especially if they don't say, hey, we revised, this is an issue, we understand it, we heard you guys, we revised the new Joy-Cons coming out to work and be, I'm going to lose the back of my seat here if I don't have the screw in. We're working on it, so we fixed the issue, here's the new Joy-Cons, and that's that. But if they continue to, like, not even acknowledge it, like even Microsoft, when they had the Red Ring of Death, obviously that is a bigger issue, is the console itself not working. So, and again, a lot of people just bought these, and, you know, they might be annoyed by their Joy-Cons, but they mostly play with the Pro Controller, so they don't even, it's just like out of sight, out of mind. So I understand that. But for somebody like me, who, because Nintendo, when they showed the Switch in that January event back in 2017, one of the things that got me really excited was, you know, these bad boys, you know, being able to almost get that Wii feeling again, where I had my motion controls, my gyro pointer. I was getting excited, thinking, oh, we're going to get, you know, what I loved that the Wii did, which is, you know, make me very comfortable with FPSs, first-person shooters again. Because I've, you know, you guys probably heard me talk about it 1,000 times, that I like first-person shooters on PC and N64, because N64 with the C buttons mimicked strafing, you know, using a keyboard, left, right, up, and down. So I love that. And obviously the analog stick was your pointer, or where you look. So I love that. And so when we got to the GameCube era, and that little that little C nipple, as I call it, I wasn't a fan. Even, you know, the what is it? The or the original Xbox. This thing has a long cord. You know, using, this is when Xbox brought out dual analog for FPSs and whatnot. I didn't get a PlayStation 2 until later, and I didn't buy a PlayStation 2 for shooters, bought it for RPGs mostly. And I never got comfortable with dual analog for FPS games and shooting and stuff. So, and obviously they went on with the 360, PS2, PS3. Things are dusty. And Xbox One as well. Now, I still play them on these consoles, FPSs, but I'm not as comfortable as I am using this and this and pointing, or using, like I said back in the day, N64, strafing and looking around. What's up, Avidan? Yeah, so I use this a lot, and I was really excited when they showed all that cool stuff they were going to be doing with the JoyCons, and they poured the water, and you were pointing and looking, and remember this thing, Nintendo? No, Nortradamus. Thank you for the $1 tip, man. Thank you. Yeah, so remember this little IR camera and how it was gonna. It does work. You use it in stuff like Labo, which I have, which is pretty cool. But as far, I was hoping they would do more stuff with their, first party, bigger titles and stuff. This is something that Nintendo would do. Nintendo would usually make a controller around an idea instead of making a idea around the controller. It's just like they would have a game in mind that would push the way the controller works. And so outside of like 1-2 switch, nothing has said, all right, this was built with what the abilities of this controller have. This was built with that in mind. So Trizzy, what's up? Yeah, so it's a little depressing, a little disheartening, because I was hoping that they would really go in with the capabilities of the JoyCons themselves, and so, like I said, I started using my JoyCons. I think I bought I want to say I bought the Pro controller either the same day or within the first week, because I just, I knew I was going to get one. I knew I was going to want it for certain things, and they didn't. Yeah, so yeah, Trizzy, you're right. They probably built it with Labo in mind, but Labo is somewhat niche. It's not like building or having the Joy-Cons with Mario Odyssey in mind, or obviously they couldn't really do it for Breath of the Wild because that game was in development before the Switch. So they wouldn't really and it also came out on Wii U, so they couldn't really do that. But yeah, you want your company or the company, when they make a creative new idea like this, you want it to work for a mainstream game, a big first party game. That's what pushes that hardware. That's what pushes that technology. Is when the first party company uses it in a really cool way. So that hasn't really happened yet, and I'm worried that the focus on the Joy-Cons is going to be even less, especially with now we got the Switch Lite, which doesn't have Joy-Cons on it. So companies have already thought of basically handheld mode first, and then what we can add on outside of that for Switch games. They've already kind of done that. But what's up, Laker Link? Did I pre-order Double Switch for the Switch? They opened today. I did not. I didn't know they opened today. It's gonna be gone by the time I look it up. But no, I haven't yet. So hopefully they'll have another shipment or something. Maurice, what's up, man? I was a little disappointed there was no Wiimote for Twilight Princess HD. I know, yeah, that would have been great too, but a little bit more understandable because they had to build it with what was inside of the Wii U box. and there was no, unfortunately, there was no Wii remote in there, and I think that was a mistake. One of the mistakes with the Wii U, but that's a another video or another topic for another day. Richard Diamonds, Nintendo Labo is just as niche as PS4's VR. Yeah, I mean, I don't think PS4 VR is mainstream. Yeah, it's sold the most out of all the VR setups, but it's because it's the quote unquote simplest setup. It's just you buy the console and then you buy the VR. When you're dealing with the other VR setups out there, it's like, okay, I got my PC. Can my PC run this thing? And then there's different VR headsets. Which one is more popular? So yeah, I mean, it's going to be confusing. Most people aren't going to do that, especially on PC. That audience is too segmented. Something like VR is something that is shooting for more a mainstream setup, and PC is not a mainstream setup, if you know what I mean. It's not like, everybody. You have to be more in tune to hardware and software when you're dealing with PC gaming. It's not just I got a box and then let's go. It's okay. So what what kind of RAM I got? What's my CPU? What's all that stuff. So it's a little different. But yeah, so this lawsuit is imminent, possibly, because I think they're gonna find enough people that are gonna do it. And like I said, I get nothing out of Nintendo being sued for anything. I just want them to recognize that there is an issue. This is a mistake. Leave that alone. That there is an issue, and they need to address it, because there's enough people that talk about this. I know a lot of people who have Switches that have Joy-Con drift issues, and the thing that's saving Nintendo at this point, as far as more noise being made about it, is that a lot of people are using their Pro controllers over the Joy-Cons, and that also saddens me, because it's like, well, if not enough people are using the Joy-Cons to play, Nintendo is not going to look into, possibly they're not going to look into doing more with the Joy-Cons. And again, like the fact that, I don't know why I didn't bring this up about the Switch Lite, is that that's going to make it more difficult for people focusing on Joy-Cons and whatnot, because there's going to be a pretty big audience at some point of people out there with their Switches being only the Switch Lite, which doesn't have Joy-Cons. So let me see what you guys are talking about. Maurice, for the most comfortable Pro controller was the GameCube. For me, the most comfortable controller was the GameCube. Dreamcast was cool too. I like the Joy-Cons. I kind of missed the gamepad. That's why I wanted the Switch Lite to be like a second, or to second as a gamepad. I don't know why I couldn't read that. Yeah, me too. I mean, that would have been cool. Even before Switch came out, that was kind of the hope that maybe I can use my my Wii U gamepad or something to link up to it. That would have been great, but obviously that didn't happen. They were more focused on basically, handheld mode, because the system had to work for every setup, and the main setup is handheld mode, because you got to build from there and go outward. So yeah, the Dreamcast. Do I have the controller here? No, it's not within reach. Not my favorite controller. I didn't like the shape of it. I think they should have went with the Saturn 3D controller. The Dreamcast seems like it came from that, but then it kind of got too angular, and I think the Saturn's 3D controller was really good. They should have went with that, just stayed with that design, because most people didn't have it anyway. So it looked like a new controller, just change the color and all that stuff. But Labo is love, Labo is life, says Notre Dame. Lakeland, I already said that. I think, yeah, about Double Switch. I was a little bit disappointed there was I said that one already. PSVR could make a great Iron Man game, but somehow I still don't think it would sell. I don't know. I don't know. again, I think the first party company, Sony, has to make something and push the VR. And that's how every game that Sony makes should have a VR mode. And that's the best way to sell VR. A third party company isn't going to do anything that with the VR or something like that that's not gimmicky. You had a lot of the issues with like that with games like that on Wii, not Wii U, on Wii, where use of the motion controller was pretty gimmicky and really cheap, kind of. A lot of it was. So the first party has to say, all right, here's the reason why you need our VR headset, or here's the reason why you need our JoyCons or our Wii remote and nunchuck. And Nintendo did that out of the box with Wii Sports, and even for their hardcore games, they use it. Metroid Prime 3 used it beautifully. Zelda, Twilight Princess for Wii used it. Wasn't beautifully. I mean, it wasn't bad. It was kind of more waggly. But Twilight Sword used it expertly, and I know some people just don't like motion controls, so that game was a little divisive. But unlike the Wii, Switch, they can do it for both. So, and they do it for both. Like if I want to play Zelda using motion controls, the aim, I can do that on the Switch. That's the great thing about it. And if I don't, then I can just play it like this. So options, but I just want those options reinforced in first party games. And that's the only way these companies are going to sell peripherals, add-ons and whatnot, is to have a reason for you to buy it. Like, where is it? Like N64. It wasn't on purpose, but can I pull this out by hand? I doubt it. Let me see if I just use this. The expansion pack, if I can pull it out here. I don't think I can. That thing's really in there. Where's my... Here we go. The expansion pack, they pretty much, they packed it in with a lot of games. Well, not a lot of games, but a few games. DK64 being one. And at some point... I'm doing this on the wrong side. At some point... I'm going to break it. At some point, it became a standard. Like, it was in every console. So... this thing is really tough for me. Hold on. Oh, because my whatchamacallit is not in here. That's what's going to make it too hard. All right, no big deal. You guys know what I'm talking about. Expansion pack, they forced you to use it because they started putting it in every console. And then there were certain games that said, expansion pack compatible, on the box, or expansion pack required, all that kind of stuff. They push you to buy it. So a lot of people at the end of the N64's life cycle had one of these, I'd probably say at least a third of the N64 users at the end had an expansion pack. And so they gave you reasons to buy it, I don't think Nintendo games did, but certainly Rare did. And their kind of second party studio stuff with Factor 5, with the Star Wars games. Obviously Perfect Dark used it, like I said, Rare Games. So they gave you incentive to buy that peripheral. And Sony's not doing that with PSVR at the moment. They're not pushing it the way, you should push it. If you're the first party company, this is your piece of tech. If you want people to buy it, you got to give them a reason to buy it. And it's not going to be some gimmicky mode for a third party game. You have to sell it. So like if Last of Us is a cross-gen title, Last of Us 2, it should day one have a VR mode, day one. And VR doesn't have to be you looking around or whatnot. It's cool enough to be in VR to where you're just seeing the world in 3D. That is cool enough as it is. And that's why I feel like, they should, every game they put out, God of War, next God of War, next, I don't know if they're going to do another Uncharted or not, but next, what's the mech Indian girl game? What is that? Can't think of the name of it. But yeah, that game should have VR day one, out of the box, so to speak. So that's my hope. I don't want them to get sued, but I do want them to pay attention and, Majora's Mask require expansion pack. I'm pretty sure that was the case. That is a good question. I don't have the box near me. Let me look it up real quick. Santiago's asking if Majora's Mask required it. I believe they did, actually. Let's see. Majora Mask box art. You might be right about that one. Yes, you're correct, Santiago. So that was a game that also required the expansion pack. And I believe that was because Majora's Mask was being made for the 64DD, and I don't know if I'm sure you guys know what that is, right? The disk drive that Nintendo was working on for the N64 only came out in Japan. The expansion, the 64DD default had a expansion pack to it, the extra 4 megabytes. So, a game like Majora's Mask, they were thinking about day one using that 4 megabytes for the game. So it ended up requiring it. So yeah, that was a good call, Santiago. That was the one game I knew there was at least one, but I couldn't remember which one it was. One of the most popular games. I should have remembered that. But that's how you do it. You have to have a top tier game that requires it. And Majora's Mask ended up selling less than Ocarina of Time. I think Ocarina of Time is the quote unquote better game as far as what it did for the system. But Majora's Mask is more technically sound, more visually impressive. And it's a big first party game, Zelda is. So it didn't sell as much. I don't know if that's all the fault of the expansion pack, but it sold really well still, which says there was a lot of people with expansion packs out there. So yes, Certain Squared. Yeah, I just mentioned that. So what's that? It did because of the NPC schedules. Oh yeah, I should have remembered because of that, because it had the internal clock, and Matthew Shea mentioned the NPC schedules, so people were doing stuff, and today that's taken for granted, but back then that was unprecedented. It was unheard of outside of maybe PC. But there was no really big, at the time that game came out, there was no big 3D adventure games that had NPCs that did their own thing. So at the time that was unheard of, and it was amazing. So it needed that expansion. It needed the 4 megabytes for that kind of stuff, and the day to night cycle stuff. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't have really anything else to say on the possible class action lawsuit. I myself, I could join it. I don't want to. If it becomes a thing, I wouldn't want to join it. But if I did join it, it would be out of frustration that Nintendo's not even acknowledging the issue. So hopefully it doesn't get to that point. Let's just fix the JoyCons. Let people know there's an issue. Obviously, there's the issue with cracking and stuff as well. That's probably not as big. Only my son's, and his is old or newer than mine. Only his Switch has the cracking issue. And I've seen, fair enough amount of people talk about that, but I haven't had that issue on mine. My daughter's is fine, mine is fine, and I put a ton of hours into mine. But my son hasn't put as much, and he's pretty good with his electronics. But this is definitely a design flaw because it's happening. It's the cracks are happening in the same area on everybody's Switch, so it's not just it was bad use or poor, they didn't take care of it or something like that. It was definitely because it's a factory thing, and so is this Joy-Con thing. It is a factory issue. At the factory level, there's something going wrong with these Joy-Cons. Now, there's tons of ways to fix them. People online have showed you how to do it, but it's a temporary fix because dust will build up again at some point in that stick mechanism, and you'll just be back to square one again. And that also reminds me of Red Ring of Death because that was an issue too. I used to refurbish them, Xbox 360s, that first model. I used to refurbish them because there's a lot of people with the Red Ring of Death. I would fix them, and sometimes I'd buy broken ones, or I guess that's the best way to say it. Broken Xbox 360s and PS3s actually. PS3, they had the yellow light of death, the YLOD, people called it, and so I would do a reflow on them. I'd put new heat sink in it, new heat sink paste, and fix it. But it was a temporary fix because after a while, more use, the same thing would happen. So it was because it was a factory level flaw. It wasn't anything you could do to really combat it. So I know they came out with the newer model 360, and that one didn't have the issue as much. It still had it occasionally. It was probably more like, unlike the original, which was like probably 60%, it was more like 5 to 10% on that model. So it was a big difference. So but the thing is, I shouldn't have to fix it. I shouldn't have to be an engineer to when I buy your product, to after a year and a half to 2 years have issues with it. It should last at least the life of the console. I don't think that's too much to ask. With normal wear, normal usage, it should last at least the life of the console. And I don't even use my Joy-Cons as much, as I used, say, or I definitely don't use it as much as I use my Xbox One controller because it's the only controller. But for my Switch, I have an option. I have obviously these, but then I also have this bad boy which I bought, and my extra Joy-Con, and I actually have another Joy-Con, just doesn't work anymore. I don't know what's wrong with that thing. And I basically replaced it with this for handheld mode to have a D-pad. So there's that. So I use my Joy-Cons way less than I would use any other controller for any of my other consoles in the past, and so it doesn't get nearly as much use as those, but those all still work fine. So what's going on? I expect more from Nintendo, and they make quality hardware, especially. So this is very foreign to me as a Nintendo consumer for decades, that they would have a device or some hardware that has issues like this, that's big enough to where they need to address it. So yeah, that's all I really got to say about that issue. Let's see what you guys are saying, and we'll move on. I hope Doug Bowser can start putting his foot down to NOJ, unlike Reggie and not become their biggest shill for the unnecessary shenanigans. Um, no, that's not a Reggie issue. Um, Reggie is a spokesperson, was a spokesperson. Doug Bowser is just going to be another spokesperson. Um, he's going to do what the company wants him to do. Um, there's no, there's not going to be some power struggle. He could help us get more games, stuff like that. He can help us get stuff localized and things like that. But as far as telling Nintendo what to do with their hardware, or pushing NOJ to do stuff, that's just not going to happen. I mean, I think even if there's a scenario where NOA is doing like way better than everybody, they're killing it. The sales are crazy in North America, and it has a lot to do. That would have a lot to do. You can tie it back to being something that Doug Bowers is doing great. Even if he could be credited with that kind of thing, they still wouldn't. I don't think they would, give him any kind of power to where he could tell them what they need to be doing. They'll just see that as, we are the one who made you. Basically, we're the ones who put you in the position to be successful, Mr. Bowser or Mr. Fils-Aimé. Any success you get is because of what we've done. So they would never, that's just company think. That's not like unique to Nintendo. That's just the way companies think. It's just like, you can come in as a guy and make these changes and do really cool things for your neck of the woods. But they would just see that as, we put you in a situation to where you could do that. They would take the credit, I think. And see, Sega, I'm glad Crazy Old School brought up Sega. Yeah, I wish Sega would come back too. Sega wasn't like that. Sega of America had push, and they exhorted their, weight. They didn't have, obviously, control to where they were telling Sega of Japan what to do, but they would go out and do things on their own and push their own agenda, and really with nobody getting on them. But the problem was NOJ would also do that, or not NOJ, Sega of Japan would also do that, and they would do stupid things like spring announce Sega Saturn 6 to 8 months early, or put the Sega Saturn out there. Was it before or after 32X? I want to say it was a couple months after 32X, and just kill any momentum 32X could have had. 32X could have been a good setup, a good system. As much as I love the Saturn, and I do, it's my favorite console outside of a Nintendo console. They should have probably waited until 97 before coming out with a console, and just kind of stuck to what they were doing with this 32X, and because 32X did have the power to do some games that would be whoa, but the problem is they didn't get the chance to do that. They had the capability to do some really good games. They couldn't do 3D really well, but it could do some really cool stuff that would have had them, or at least 96. They could have waited till 96 or something, but that is what it is. But I don't think there's going to be any push from Doug Bowser to Nintendo of Japan. Not going to happen, bro. Not going to happen. I actually feel he'll end up being less effective than Reggie. But that's just my gut feeling. I have really nothing to base that on. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Because look right now, my biggest issue right now is that we're not getting these cool special editions and stuff. Luckily, I'm going to be able to get the Damon X Machina special edition, with the statue and all that. Luckily, I'm going to be able to get that because of my good buddy Clocked It who's in their podcast with us, Juices Loose podcast. He lives in England, and he was able to spot one over there, and he pre-ordered it for me. That's the only reason I'm getting that. That's the kind of stuff I want Doug Bowser to work on. Let me get these special editions in North America that everybody else is getting. What is the issue here? Like, we should be getting this stuff. It shouldn't be a question. We're the biggest market. Not to, take anything away from anybody else. But if you're a business, you serve your biggest market, especially. You don't have to serve them better, but you have to serve them at least as good as you serve the smaller market. And it's kind of backwards. It's been like that way for a while. Through the Wii U, it was definitely that way. And again, on the Switch, I don't get it. I get it a little bit more on the Wii U, but I don't get it as much on the Switch because the Switch is super popular. So, especially in North America, it won in NPD again, and it'll probably win NPD through early 2021. So, what's going on? Come on, Dougie. Show me how to Dougie. Show me that you can, and I mean, obviously Reggie needed some work with that too. So if they can't even do that, they can't even make sure we get these cool editions and stuff in America. How are they gonna tell Nintendo Japan what to do with the hardware? I don't see how that's gonna happen, bro. My Joy-Cons don't drift, and I've had them since launch yet. However, both my Joy-Cons does not lock to Switch. Oh, so you're having the not locking issue, which is another issue that not a lot of people talk about. But that's also an issue. I don't know if it's I haven't really looked into it as much, and I should have as a dad who should care about but my son has a Pro controller too, so he doesn't complain about it as much. So maybe that's why I don't look into it as much. But yeah, I don't know what's up with the railings. I don't know if it's a railing issue. I mean, it has to be. It has to be something with the connector. There's a connector at the bottom here of the rail. That's where your console connects, and then you have a little what do they call these connector bars here. You slide them in, and that's how it recognizes. That's when it makes a little sound. And sometimes the thing is that he'll slide on his Joy-Con. It'll make that click sound. You'll see the thing on the screen, but 2 seconds later, it's disconnected. It's not recognized. So he'll sometimes play his Switch like this. He'll walk around holding it. See how I have the railings like that? He'll walk around with his Switch like this. That's insane. He has to walk around with his Switch like this to get to play in handheld mode. That's not cool. Why is he dealing with that? And his Switch, again, is newer than mine. And he takes decent care. I mean, he's a 9-year-old, but, he's not he doesn't do it the way I do. But he doesn't drop it. He doesn't put it in, bad situations. He's not stepping on it or anything like that. He takes decent care of it. And I don't get that issue, because that definitely shouldn't be an issue. So who knows what's going to happen? Maybe they'll end up making a Switch that doesn't come with Joy-Cons. Maybe that's what the Pro would be. The Pro, if it's ever a thing, we're going to talk about that in a little bit, would just be this. It comes with this part of this system. And maybe it'll still have the screen, because some people, I've heard people talk about maybe it won't have a screen. It'll just be a dedicated console without the screen on it. But I think that would be too much of big of a leap to where they would just be making a new console at that point. But maybe a version of the Switch comes with no Joy-Cons and a Pro controller, because that's very possible at this point. Why not? Why not do that? And if you want to do portable, and that'll be home console based. If you want to do portable, go out and buy some Joy-Cons, and you can still always do tabletop mode, because it'll still allow you to do that with your Pro controller. So who knows? Who knows? That's a possibility as well. So let's see what you guys are saying here. I want to move on. Let's see. Back up a little bit. Doug Bowser, yeah. Man, I must be lucky then. Day one buyer, and I have no cracking or bending on my Switch. Weird. No, I don't think it's weird. I just think some of us aren't as lucky, you know. But it seems like there is a big enough amount of people. I mean, just go to YouTube and type in Joy-Con drift. You'll see hundreds of videos of people showing the issue and what's wrong, or people repairing the Joy-Con drift. So yeah, you just fell in the margins where that hasn't happened. I know people who say that hasn't been an issue. I think Rob Rula 2 doesn't have any issues with his Switch, and I know he's a day one guy too. So you guys are just lucky. I don't know. I'm unlucky this time. I've been lucky with every other Nintendo console I've bought, fortunately, but this time, unfortunately, I'm not lucky. So yeah, you're lucky there, Santiago. Crazy Old School says, same here, day one, no issues. Yeah, you guys are lucky, man. Trizzy, I blame my daughter for putting a chip in the top of my Switch until you posted a picture of a chip. Oh, that was you. Yeah. I remember you said you got mad at her or something, and you realized that it wasn't her fault, and it was actually an issue that a lot of people were having with their Switches. That cracking around the... Mine doesn't have it. My son's has it. I think it's around... Is it the power button and the plus and minus, or is it around the fan? I can't remember. It's where it is, but it's the same on everybody who has that issues problem. It's the same on all their consoles. So it wasn't your daughter's fault. Did you buy her something nice and apologize to her, Trizzy? Yeah. So Matthew says my niece is cracked, but she also just leaves it lying everywhere and forgetting to dock it to charge all the time. My launch model is still tip top. Yeah, that still might not be her fault, Matthew. If the cracking is at that certain area, it's still probably not her fault. It's a design flaw from overheating, because the Switch gets really hot in the dock, very hot. And I think they may have fixed that somewhat in updates, and we just missed it. To where it was getting that hot, because I think it's a clock issue, an overclock issue that they can fix, but they still have that boost mode out there for overclocking. So I don't know. We'll see. Reggie was the greatest thing ever at Nintendo. I hope he goes to Sega and gives them power. Yeah, I have this feeling that it wasn't just, oh, I'm ready to retire, I'm done. Because Reggie doesn't have that. Reggie he has that internal drive that it takes to be a successful person in the business, in the industry. And I just don't see somebody like that retiring, being done. Now you can be tired of the company you work for or move on. Reggie has done that before. And I don't think he's going to not work. I think he's still going to be doing something. Now, if he goes to another game company, that's signal number one that it was some kind of internal power struggle or something that pissed him off to make him move on. So I'm going to be looking for that if he moves on to another game company or something like that. Then to me that says he was mad and he couldn't get his way. Because I think the thing about Reggie that I liked, and people don't really give him credit for, I think he did have his ear to the pulse of the Nintendo fan. I think he did listen. He knew what our issues were. I think that he did do that, but he couldn't push the big boys to understand that and make things happen for us that way. I think he did the best he could. I used to get kind of frustrated when people went, "Oh, Reggie this, Reggie that." It's almost like what he's able to do or what his capabilities are, what his what his influences are in the company. Oh, Reggie said this, blah blah blah. It's like, well, yeah, he at the end of the day, he's a PR guy. He's not gonna sit there and say, yeah, we sucked at this. We needed to do that. He's gonna do what the company wants you to do. And every company, that's not a Nintendo problem. That's every company wants to protect their interest. And so I used to get frustrated because, Reggie was what Nintendo needed, especially at the time. GameCube wasn't selling well. The future was, unsure. And he brought confidence back to Nintendo fans, the core Nintendo fans especially, because, guys were moving off to Xbox. Guys were moving on to PlayStation and focusing on that. And even with the benefits that the GameCube did have, like the more third-party support, a lot of those games didn't sell nearly as well, and the systems weren't selling. And so, yeah, we had more variety from third parties. There was a lot of really good third-party games on GameCube, which was, cool to me, but I had other consoles, so those games didn't stand out. Now, third-party, what do you call them? Third-party exclusive did, like Rose Kawajan series, stuff like that, but I'm getting dry-mouthedness. Where's my brew? Mother's milk. Now, like I said, those helped, but as far as like, Madden, I played Madden on the GameCube, obviously, because it was my system of choice. But those games don't be like, oh, that's why I'm buying a GameCube is to play Madden. You did it for first party games. So, yeah, so we needed Reggie when he came out there and started kicking asses and taking names. We needed that fire, in the belly. We needed that reassurance. That's why Nintendo fans gravitated to him, because we were desperately needing something like that to make us feel good about the future, because it was unsure. It was a little shaky at the time. So we definitely needed that character, Reggie, and he's gonna be missed. Nothing against Doug Bowser, but I don't think he has that kind of personality. He seems a little bit more corporate-y to me. That's not a knock to him or what he does. That's just how I feel. And guys like Reggie, you don't fill his shoes. Guys like Iwata, you don't fill their shoes. A lot of people can't even pronounce Nintendo's current president's name because they don't care enough about the guy, Furukawa, because you don't hear about him. He doesn't do anything in front of the scenes. He does his stuff behind the scenes. And he's very business-like, that guy. So he's going to be very good on the business end, but not on the personable end. So maybe that's one of the things that pushed Reggie out. Reggie and Iwata were tight. I don't, if Iwata was still around, I don't know that Reggie would be gone today. So that's another thing, so we'll see. Where are we? I scrolled up by mistake. Nintendo Keys says Nintendo's good hardware streak had to end eventually. I see what you're saying. I don't think it had to end. I think one of the things about the Switch is that there's a lot of tech going on in the console. It's compact. People don't give it credit for its form factor, how cool it is, and to be able to do what it does in its size. We're talking about something that's barely bigger than my phone. People don't give enough credit for that. So I think they wanted that, but they also, had to realize that we can't do everything that we want at a reasonable price. And we're not going to lose money on this console the way we lost on Wii U. Even though it was incremental, they wanted to make money. They wanted to get back to making money per console like they were used to doing beforehand. So they probably cut a few corners here and there when it comes to the Joy-Con. When you open those things up, man, and I've done it a few times. Obviously, I modded And the only reason I actually modded this, I probably wouldn't have modded my Joy-Cons, was because it was having the Joy-Con issue, the drift issue. And I was like, well, okay, I'm already going to be opening it up to fix that. And I had done that, and it's back to not working again. So I'm going to have to do it again. But the only reason I opened them up was for that. And so I was like, well, let me do something more creative with it, because I was wanting Nintendo to release, cooler looking Joy-Cons that they haven't really done yet. They released different colors, but they haven't released anything that's like really been like cool design wise. So I wanted to add some flavor to my Joy-Con while I was already opening the damn things up. So that's what that is. So Terminated Juice, yo, what's up, man? I was streaming earlier, and now you and Robert and Terrell are all streaming at the same time. Nice. Trizzy, oh, you're saying hi to Juice. Oh, you said you apologized to your niece. I think you might have said that back then. I'm not sure when that happened. That was, I want to say, late last year, September. It was right before I moved. So I think that was like September of last year you were talking about that. Because that's when I did the live stream about it. So let's see. Man, time flies. Spazzy, the way these class action suits work is that the lawyers are really only looking for a settlement. Yeah. They'll settle for a fraction of the original amount. And most goes to them. We get like $12. Yeah, for me, again, it's not about winning a lawsuit and hurting Nintendo's pockets. I just want that threat of them losing money to make them do something about the Joy-Cons. Because if they lose that lawsuit and do nothing, they can be sued again. So you would think they'd have to do something. So I think, they don't want to settle. They don't want to have to deal with any of it. They should just right now put out a statement. We've heard you about the Joy-Cons. We know they're an issue. They're a sizable enough issue for us to do something about, and we're doing that. Our apologies. Here's some free games for those of you who have Joy-Cons. Because that's what an Iwata-led Nintendo would do. You see what happened with the 3DS. I bought the 3DS day one at $250, and it wasn't selling, and they cut the price to $179. They cut it by $70. That hurt them. Iwata took a pay cut, and all the top guys took a pay cut, and they gave us 20 games. They gave us 20 games for those of us who were ambassadors, or for those of us who were another word for ambassador would be beta tester. They gave us something for that. They gave us 20 games because we couldn't. They weren't going to give us an $80 check, so they gave us something to make us feel better about having to pay that price. And I was totally cool with that. I thought that was great. They cared enough to do that, and that's all I want. I want them to care enough that people are having issues to do something about it. Alonzo Miyamoto is the greatest thing. I just lost you. My thing scrolled. Miyamoto is the greatest thing Nintendo ever had because the majority of Nintendo's franchises were created by him. Yeah, Nintendo or Miyamoto is great. I hope his philosophy has permeated enough through Nintendo, because he's not getting any younger, to where that doesn't affect games and gameplay. But he's also been detrimental in some ways. I'm pretty sure he was instrumental in why GameCube didn't get Grand Theft Auto. I think that came from him a lot. A big majority of that came from him. But who knows? I don't know if the reporting on that was right or not. Could be wrong, so I don't want to definitively say. But he's done other things that may not have been the best, because of his kind of somewhat conservative views on just game design itself. So let's see, how do you say it? Nortradamus. My uncle and me were discussing if the Pro is just a souped up dock, but we think it's just a bit, just a better Switch model. Yeah, I don't think the Pro, if we ever get a Pro, is going to be a souped up dock. I don't think it's going to have anything to do with the dock. It's going to be an internal design issue, or not issue, but internal design difference. It won't be the dock, because the dock currently doesn't really do anything other than up your image to 1080p. There's a little microchip in there, little chip, a little circuit board in there that does that, and that's basically all it does. It doesn't have a cooling system or anything like that people speculated on. It doesn't add more power to the system. It just basically is a converter box for 1080p to be able to output in that. So if anything is going to change with the hardware, it's going to be internal inside the Switch. Amarma, what's up? What up, T? Loving the videos. What's your thoughts on standalone Mario platformers since the release of Mario Maker games? I will still prefer this type of purchase. What about you? Are you saying you still prefer, traditional Mario games? Yeah, me too. I still want Nintendo, and that's just a want. I can't do anything about it, but I still want Nintendo to make a standalone side-scrolling Mario games. I don't know if they will, and they don't do it themselves. They have enough studios to where they could pass it off to somebody, or not. I mean, they can take a portion of the Odyssey team to work on a 2D Mario game. I hope they still do that, because the new Super Mario series, while the first couple, they're all good games. They just don't have the weight of a 2D Mario game to where it feels like, oh, this is the next adventure. That's the thing. They just felt like levels, with Mario in it, to where the last Mario adventure we had was Super Mario World. And that was a long time ago. So at this point, I don't know if they'll do it because, like I said, that was a long time ago. And they're just probably in Mario Maker mode / here's some Mario levels in a game series, and they don't think about the art design and that kind of stuff. That needs to change with Mario. It needs to have its, it needs to have a Link's Awakening type of shift to where, coming from the 2D world, as far as the art style of it goes, it needs something like that, an exciting new look, for the next 2D Mario game. Hopefully they do that. I don't know if they will though. Let's see. Sony should have. Hold up. Mizzah Tee is live. Mizzah Tee is live. Says Sort of Life Story. What's up? Yeah, Sony should have been done. I can't read because I'm light shining in my eyes. This with the Vita, but Nintendo was smarter with the Switch. What are you saying they should have done? Elaborate, Afro. I'm not sure what the context you're talking about there is. Sort of Life Story seems like they're leaving all the different Joy-Con options to third parties, which is cool, but quality control is an issue. Yeah, I'm kind of over, wanting Nintendo to make some cool Joy-Cons, because at this point, there's people, especially on Etsy and stuff, giving you really cool looking shells and stuff like that. And for somebody like me, it's not a big issue. I could totally just buy a new shell, have different different just buy another regular Joy-Con and just change the shell. I can do that myself. Not a big deal. Who was that? Oh, Jonathan Reed dropped $2 in the super chat. Thank you, my man. Appreciate that. Yeah, so that's the thing, that to me, that's not a big deal. I'm not worried about that anymore. I just want them to fix the actual internals of the Joy-Cons at this point. So I'm not worried about, cool designs anymore, because I can do it on my own. So let's see. Seems like, I just read that. Matthew Shea, launch switches were a rush job because of Wii U's failure. Pretty good Rush job, but still rushed. Keys, well, let's hope Nintendo addresses the issue because it's a terrible ongoing issue. I'm actually surprised at Nintendo. Same here. This is, I talk about it every once in a while. This is very un-Nintendo-like. This is not something I would expect from them, you know. And I feel like, I don't know if it's the changing of the guard with the new presidents and whatnot. We've had a couple since Iwata. We had an acting, and now our current Furukawa. They're maybe it's just their, because again he's a very business oriented dude. Like, you know, he grew up in that. He's all about the business, and I just hope that's not the case here. Feels like it. I said it from the beginning. It felt like, you know, he's more about that instead of, like, you know, customer satisfaction and just having his ear to the ground the way Iwata used to. But, you know, people complained about the guy, and now we're having stuff like this happen. So it's just like, you could have it both ways. Iwata did have it both ways. You know, the Wii sold really well, DS sold really well, and he was who he is. And then he obviously had the period of Wii U and 3DS, early 3DS and Wii U, to where he was still who he was, but the system wasn't selling. So everybody and their mamas had ideas about what he should do and how he's terrible and stuff. But now we have this business guy who's all about the business, man. And it's great on one end because the business of Nintendo was doing well, and you know, we're getting stuff that we weren't getting on Wii U and Wii even. But you know, there's issues like this that aren't that big right now, but could creep up and become really big, serious things. So hopefully not, but we'll see. Fly from the inside. Mario Maker is perfect for when Nintendo has to take 4 or 5 years to develop the next main Mario title. Yeah, I mean, I think they should, because I'm done. I'm done with the new Super Mario series. I was so done with it. I'm done, and they just re-released. Well, not just re-released, but this year they re-released New Super Mario Brothers U, and that made me even more done than the done that I already had. And so yeah, I'm ready for a new, nicely designed 2D Mario adventure game that's cohesive. You know, that's a cohesive 2D Mario adventure game, and maybe use the art style of what is it? Super Mario 3D World, because it looks fantastic in 2D on Mario Maker. So maybe even go there. Yeah. And I didn't read Jonathan's comment. Sorry, man, I missed it. Great channel T. I definitely have to read that because it makes me feel good inside. Thanks, man. And again, thanks for the donation there. Maurice Charles, are you saying an iteration of Mario, the likes of 2, is needed? Oh, I guess you're asking. All right, I don't know either, so maybe he'll answer. Would you prefer a Switch Pro or a completely new console? All right, so I should have started this a long time ago, but Switch Pro. I made a video, my last video. Go watch it if you haven't. Talking about how there may not be a Switch Pro, because there's no guarantees on that, and it's not something Nintendo has done with their home consoles. And Switch is a home console, but it's also a hybrid, and it's a handheld as well. So we just don't know at this point. But I made the argument that we may not get one because one, we got the 2DS. I keep calling it 2DS. It's basically the 2DS. We got the Switch Lite coming, and that's to serve a specific market. And even people who have Switches are like, I want to get one because I like how it looks, or I want to get one because I can put my account on it and just leave my current Switch docked all the time, and I can run that as my as my on the go switch, which is very cool. You can do that as well. I don't Nintendo didn't really explain that, but you can do that. You can take your account and put it on another switch and download your games to it. You can do that, and obviously with the cloud, if you have Nintendo Online, it'll back your saves up, so you'll have your same saves. It's like crossplay. You'll be using the same saves and stuff, so you can do that. So, but with that, and then with the slight revision, that is the Switch 2.0, whatever you want to call it, where the battery is almost double, basically. Excuse me. The battery's life has changed. They actually are changing, the form, not internal parts and whatnot, components and whatnot, making it more streamlined, more cheap, not cheap, making it cheaper for them to produce. So they're doing that. And then next year we have, God, my mouth is dry for some reason. I haven't been smoking, I promise. Not that beer is the best cure for dry mouthedness, because it's not. Next year we have new consoles coming from Sony and Microsoft, but that's not a reason to push out a Switch Pro either, because the first year, 2 years, you're getting cross-gen games. So the Switch will still be getting games that are coming out new, third-party games that are coming out new on the other consoles, on the new consoles, the PS5 and Scarlet, because there'll be cross-gen games, at least for the first 2 years. Companies don't usually move on until that second year or after the second year to completely, we're only focusing on this console. Sometimes they don't even do that. PS2 had games all the way up to 2010. It had cross-gen games all the way up until then. So that happens. So Nintendo doesn't need to be in any rush, and they'll be the cheapest console still, and they'll still have the good graces, hopefully, at that point. And they have Nintendo's first-party games and huge Japanese backing, and 3DS, for all its great sales and whatnot, didn't have a lot of Western titles on it. It was mostly sold through indies, Nintendo obviously, and Japanese third party. Western third party didn't seem to care most of the time, outside of, again, like I said, indie companies and indie games studios. But major third party companies acted like the 3DS didn't exist for the most part. There were some games, Capcom did bring some stuff. Brought big games, obviously, like Monster Hunter and whatnot. But sorry, I'm talking about Western. Capcom is Eastern. Western third parties, I can't think of major stuff. Maybe EA dropped something here and there. Maybe, but no major titles. So the Switch, has already proven, because it's not getting like day and date big third party Western games on it right now. It's getting, it's getting Western games, but mostly through older ports from last generation, and it's getting fantastic indie support. So, and that's going to continue. Indie companies aren't in a rush to get on a new console that has a 2 million install base. They're not in a rush. Will they put the games on there too? Yeah, but they know where the money's being made. They're some of them haven't learned until recently where the money's being made, but for the most part, at this point, now they know. Switch is a very wonderful system for them to put their stuff on. So, Nintendo doesn't have to be in any huge hurry. They can wait a year, 2 years before they put out a new console, and they certainly don't have to put out a Pro. In that thinking, and Nintendo was pretty conservative when it comes to their consoles and stuff like that. Anyway, they may not want to disrupt, even though it's a small disruption, by putting out a Switch Pro. Because companies, can go back and update their games through software updates to match the specs of the Switch Pro, so they'll run better. They do that on PS4 and Xbox right now through the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X, they go back and update their games for those systems. So it is something they can do. But then you're adding another company to have you do that. And a lot of the Switch ports aren't done by the main companies. They're done by, development studios. So are those companies going to go back and hire those development studios to update their game for the Switch version? Probably not. So that's why I feel like there's no reason for a Switch Pro, because Nintendo could just go into 2021. They can wait till holiday 2021, or wait all the way to 2022. Or actually, I'm saying that wrong. They can go into 2020. So 2020 is when the consoles are coming, and that will be 3 years for the Switch, 3.5 years by the time those consoles come out. So Nintendo can go another 1.5 years, which would be 5 years, before worrying about a new system. So why throw something else out there, when you're probably going to have a new console within a year? I don't think Nintendo seems too conservative as a company to do that. So that's why I said there might not be a Switch Pro. I don't really care. All I want is a Switch revision, so they can fix the issues that I have with the current Switch. Make a better build for the console itself, maybe more ergonomic, JoyCons and whatnot, and make the JoyCons not drift. That would be a Switch Pro for me. Good enough update for me. So, let's see. Oh, I'm saying PS Vita should have operated like the Switch. To play Vita games on the TV, people need to buy PS Vita TV, which is another system, and certain Vita games can't be played on there without hacking it. Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I think, unlike maybe at the time when the Vita came out, it wouldn't have been that big of an issue. But I don't think the Vita was. It's a pretty powerful console, and it does have games that are, like Borderlands and whatnot, that are console games on it. But I don't think it would have been to the extent of what the Switch could do. I just think the Switch is perfectly timed, and the Vita wasn't really for wanting to do that kind of stuff. Because if it was, Nintendo would have done that with Wii U. They would have had that be the thing that they did with the Wii U. But that technology wasn't really ready to where you could have quote unquote console quality games on a handheld and on the home console, to where you can put the version of this year's Call of Duty on the Vita. Well, they did that, and not you can see the system's not powerful enough. At least enough powerful. Obviously the Switch isn't as powerful as those consoles, but they get a version of those games that doesn't make you want to punch your eyes out, or sit there and watch, slideshows because the frame rate's so bad. So I think that's the issue with the Vita. It's just bad timing, and the stupid memory card setup was the main problem. But yeah, it would have been cool to be able to play without having to buy a Vita TV, which they're like $40 now, so pretty cheap. Without having to buy a Vita TV to play on your TV, that would have been a smart option for them. So let's see. Mario 2 is the only 2D Mario game with its mechanics. I was curious if you thought the need to make a completely new iteration like some Mario 2. Well, Mario 2 is a kind of a different beast, because it was literally a different game. And Nintendo took I forgot the whole name, but it's Doki Doki Panic. For those who don't know, I'm sure you guys know by now. Doki Doki Panic was a special game that they made for an event back in 86 or 87. Maybe it was later than that. Maybe it was 88. They made it for a specific event. I think it was 87. And there was a game called Doki Doki Panic with these characters for this company. The company came out with, and Nintendo decided for the American version of Super Mario Brothers 2, they were gonna just take the unique characters in that game and swap them out with Mario characters. They changed some other stuff here and there to make it more Mario, but that's why that game is so different. It wasn't like Nintendo went out to make a different Mario game, because Mario, the actual Mario 2, which we all know in the West as the Lost Levels, that is Super Mario Brothers 2, Japan, it is very similar. I mean, it was one of the most similar Nintendo games to the prequel that I've ever seen. It's very much like the previous game. So I'm super glad that we did get Doki Doki Panic as Mario 2, because that influenced a lot of stuff in Mario games even to this day. So that's why I don't think we'll get a seismic shift like Mario Maker 2, which though I would love that to be the case. That was a specific case because of that game being a different game than Mario. That was a brilliant move by Nintendo to put Mario characters in that game. Where am I? Okay, I'm too far. Oh, T Keys says, T, what do you think about Nintendo taking more risk in exploring, making more new characters in games? Mario is cool, but maybe they could explore more. Well, they don't get credit, you know. Mario is a black hole. He's so big that he sucks the air out of everything that Nintendo does, and I'm not saying in a bad way, because I love Mario. But when they do make other characters, people don't pay as much attention. We've had two, to me anyway, big, although one of them is certainly big, the other one not so much, big new games, new Nintendo IPs with new characters in them, that people don't see in the same light. Nothing's going to touch Mario, and that's the problem, is that nothing is going to be as big and stand out as much as Mario for Nintendo. It's just not going to happen. He's just too iconic, as a character. He's too iconic of a character at this point to where, but you have games that produce new characters all the time. There's a game coming out in a week called Fire Emblem, and there's a ton of new characters in that. Xenoblade has tons of new characters. I was specifically thinking about Splatoon. Obviously, those characters are kind of not, straight up characters, because it's like Inkling Girl and Inkling Boy. I mean, they do have characters in them like what are the DJs' names? I can't think of right now. And they have new characters in them that people recognize and are fans of. I was thinking about ARMS specifically, because those are some really cool, quirky new characters that Nintendo, they only faulted those characters by not giving them like the typical story, like a backstory that you would get in like fighting games. Nintendo didn't seem to care about the story part, and that's a Nintendo kind of thing. But I think for a fighting game specifically, when you're introducing brand new characters, that game needs a story mode to get people more ingratiated with those characters. And that was the one huge mistake that they made with ARMS, that I think hurt it a lot. So there's a ton of new characters in ARMS. Now they're all, for the most part, very similar as far as their, the springy arms thing goes. But there are a ton of new characters there. So Nintendo has been putting out games with new characters a lot. It's just that Mario and Zelda and Donkey Kong, those characters are so iconic that when they do put out new characters or put games with new characters in them, they don't get the credit. Monolith Soft obviously is not Nintendo, but that is a Nintendo IP. Nintendo owns them. It's not like Sony sitting somewhere and making, I still can't remember the name of the game, with the girl with the bow and arrow and the mechs walking around in the fields. It's not like Sony sat around and said, all right, that's a character. All right. And then this guy, he's a character. He's going to be very much like not James Bond. It's going to be very much like Indiana Jones, this Uncharted guy. We're going to make a character out of him. and we're gonna make that game. And then we have the Last of Us people, and that's the same company, so they made those characters, Jack and Daxter. Sony didn't make those, so they still count as Sony characters. So why doesn't that happen when it comes to Fire Emblem and Xenoblade Chronicles and even ARMS, which is a Nintendo game, ARMS and Splatoon? Like I said, they're making new characters all the time. They just don't get the same amount of credit for them. And then it's because they have such big iconic characters that people, especially haters, can easily say, "Oh, all they do is make Mario and Zelda," because they're not really paying attention. So if you're not really paying attention, you're missing out on all these new characters that Nintendo makes with all these new games. They don't get the credit. Let's see, Matthew, next Switch 2022. Yeah, I think so. Tegra Xavier, Xbox One level performance. That's what I'm thinking. I don't think they're going to try to reach Scarlet or PS5 levels. Nintendo is very conservative, and it just makes sense. And I'm fine with an Xbox One for another such and such years, because those games look great. I mean, they already look great. Games look great at this point. I think the problem with the industry is that they focus way too much on that and not enough on gameplay. They focus way too much on how a game looks and giving you a Hollywood story instead of focusing on gameplay. And here's a prime example of that using Hollywood. There's a new movie that came out today, called The Lion King. And a big issue that people are having with it, this is what people are saying about it. Oh, it looks fantastic. Oh my God, it looks photoreal. I can't believe that's CG. These are real animals and all this stuff. But they don't emote. But it's not as colorful as the Lion King I remember. And they're not as expressive. And, the story is the same. And, the singing and the people sound like mannequins. A mannequin would sound. So it looks great. It looks beautiful. But the quote unquote gameplay isn't there. They didn't do enough with the story of Lion King to warrant this photorealistic look. And that's what's happening to me, especially. A lot of people don't care. They love, photorealistic looking games. But I feel like if you spend too much time on that, you're not spending enough time on the gameplay stuff, the stuff that keeps me playing. Like Last of Us. Last of Us looked great. A lot of people love Last of Us. People, I'm surprised that love it. But it's just like, for me, it's just, it's really visually pretty, and I've seen the story in TV shows, and it's a cover shooter at the end of the day, but so is Uncharted. But Uncharted keeps me going because it's very linear. It's set piece to set piece to set piece. It's like you're playing an action movie, you're playing an Indiana Jones movie, and it's exciting and the characters are fun, and that's what keeps me on Uncharted. But unfortunately for Last of Us, the characters aren't fun. They're very drab and dark, and I'm just not into that. Some people are. I'm into that for when I'm watching a movie, a certain type of movie. But when I'm playing a game, I don't want some drab, sobby, experience. I'm just not into that. And that's why I'm not overly crazy about quote unquote horror games. I play them here and there, but they're not like my favorite games like they are a lot of people's, because I'm not into drabness when it comes to me playing a video game. And that's why a lot of shooters don't work for me, especially military style, photorealistic, going for realism type of shooters. They don't work for me. I like more science fiction based shooters. I like Doom. That's, kind of science fiction horror. I love that because it's different. I like stuff like Deus Ex, because it's science fiction. It's a cool. They're world building as well. But in this, those shooters, it's like I know this world. When I look at a game like Last of Us, I know those worlds. I've seen tons of post-apocalyptic movies. What's the one with Clive Owen that I really love? My gosh, it came out like 2005. I can't remember the name of it, but I've seen better movies with that kind of setup. You can even look at like something like The Road, or what's the Denzel Washington one where he's like a badass. Can't think of that one. So playing a game like that, it's kind of boring to me. It's kind of drab. So, all right, I forgot even what the question was or what. Some folks don't understand that Nintendo could sell 200 million Switch consoles and some third parties still wouldn't port their games over. Ray, very true. That's very true. Because the 3DS sold really well. Nobody cared on this side of the pond. They cared in the East, you know. Indie games or indie companies certainly cared in the West, you know. But the big guys, they didn't care. So that, you know, that's why I say I'm not overly concerned with Switch sales, because at this point it's sold enough. It has sold enough to where if you're a third party company, you should have something for it. It's selling more than what it has right now isn't going to change those guys' minds. They should have already been working on something, or right now thinking about working on something, or working on something. If you're not at this point, then you're not going to ever do it, no matter how many systems they sell. So me worrying about how much Switch sells at this point doesn't matter. Santiago, sad but true. Ray, yeah, that's true. Fly from the inside. Nintendo gave up support for ARMS too soon. There were not enough characters for the game. Well, they gave up support because there weren't a lot of people paying attention. Now, that was another issue. I said that no story mode, but other modes as well. It wasn't just the story mode, but I think story mode could have helped a lot initially. And, you know, Splatoon launching a month later. Was it even a month when Splatoon 2 came out? That didn't help. But it could have garnered enough of its own audience and whatnot if it had more modes, because it's a fighting game. And unlike Splatoon, where, you know, it was limited as well, the first one especially, Splatoon 1 when it first came out, it's a shooter with, you know, there's nuances in the gameplay. You know, it's not just we're punching each other back and forth. That's all you can do in ARMS. You punch or you grab. That's it. So there's not a lot to that. It's not a typical fighting game to where you're doing all these crazy different moves. So that's another thing that hurt it as far as it selling better. I think it sold pretty well for a new fighting game in that style, in the style it was. They should be happy. But it didn't go beyond, and it's, you know, out of people's minds right now. You know, it's out of people's consciousness right now. It's not a game that people think about right away when it comes to Switch. It's out of the conscious because it was already a limited as far as the gameplay style of it, but then you limit it in the character development and you limit it in game modes, and you know, you have what you have at that point. So let's see. Horizon Zero Dawn. Thank you. I don't know why I couldn't remember that. I haven't played it yet. I have it, but I haven't played it yet. I'm probably going to get to it this month, probably at the end of this month. Yeah, Horizon Zero Dawn. Games like that, you know. See, that is a third-person game for one, but the world looked really interesting to me. It had a cool setup to me. I like, you know, games like that. But yeah, those are the type of games that Sony needs to put on PSVR day one. Horizon Zero Dawn should have VR mode day one. And that's how you sell PlayStation VR. And that's, you know, the type of stuff that every company needs to do. All right, let's see. Keys. Maybe they could use some of the characters in adventure type games, or hell, even make side scrollers out of them. It'll be interesting. Yeah, I want to see, because there were some very interesting character designs and characters in those games. I hope they become, if they don't continue on ARMS and do something really interesting for the next one that would make people go out and buy it, because I think it would be a hard sell to just say ARMS 2 and maybe add in a couple more modes. I think they would need to do more to it. Yeah, I would like to see those characters in something else. Show up in, you know, Splatoon even, you know, something. I don't know if a side scroller would work with those character designs or not, but you know, something. They need to, because those are good characters. Those clever, kind of fun, quirky character designs, and I would like to see them in something. Hopefully they just don't die with the game if the series dies with the first one. I'm about to see Lion King 4DX. All right, Maurice Charles, enjoy. I've had friends who've seen it, who have who've had press screenings, and I've seen some reviews, early reviews of it or whatnot. But I didn't need that because I just watched the trailer, and I'm like, yeah, the issues that they're telling me that the movie has, I knew it were going to be a thing because I'm looking at the trailer. I'm like, well, yeah, it looks great. Like, it definitely pushes the technology forward as far as photorealistic visuals in movies and stuff. Because those animals look like animals, the worlds look like real world and stuff. But this is the Lion King at the end of the day, and what I loved about the Lion King were the characters and how they emoted, and how I loved the colorfulness of the Lion King animated movie. And when you're dealing with a realistic world, you can still do that, but it's not. If you're going for photorealism, you can't really do that because it doesn't look right. So I wish they would have gone. I didn't mind the CG remake, but I wish they would have gone more fantasy looking instead of trying to look more realistic. So that way we can have lions that can smile and make mean faces, give you ice grills, and can laugh and joke and play. I mean, they do play and all that stuff. I heard Timon and Pumbaa were great, but I think it's because they were allowed to be free and have more fun with the characters. And they were like the comic relief, and then everything else was like more serious and stuff. So, but I already saw Lion King. So if I don't like what you're doing visually to it, I already saw Lion King, and you're not doing anything new to the story, then why should I care? I'll watch it at some point, but it'll be like a rental, or like a digital rental or something. I heard Scar's singing voice stinks. Yeah, I heard who plays Scar? Chiwetel Ejiofor. Why didn't they just get Jeremy Irons? He's still around. His Scar was fantastic. One of the best things about that movie, outside of Mufasa, obviously. He was the most memorable thing. Nobody remembered Simba. Poor Matthew Broderick. Sorry, dog. Your Simba was a little soft. But I also heard Donald Glover, didn't sound alive in his voice acting. So, and he was the singing. He obviously got drowned out in some of the numbers with Beyonce as Nala, because she's a singer. That's her thing. And he sings too, but he's not a singer. So, yeah, nothing about it excites me about it. I'm not gonna say it's terrible. They shouldn't have made it. I kind of feel like they shouldn't have, but they're doing that. I understand why they're updating their classics, because you can't keep selling the Lion King animated movie. You can't keep selling these things, so they need new things to sell. So it's the main motivation for it is money, and for me, that's an issue too, because if you don't have an artistic reason to bring this thing back, they have a monetary reason, and yeah, it pushes the technology, but you could have done that with any movie. You didn't need to do it with the Lion King if you aren't going to do anything new with the story. Regarding Western third parties, exactly how many Activision and EA games are there? Under 10 for both of them combined? Probably, yeah, Visored. That's probably right. There's not many. I mean, I have a pretty decent 3DS collection, and I can't think of anything from Activision or EA. Maybe one EA. I don't think I have an EA game. Maybe an Activision game? Maybe. But I don't think so. And I pretty much have the best games on the system. I don't have all of the best games, but my games are the best games on the system. And I don't see any of those guys. So Matthew Shea HZD is great, despite what Juice says. Yeah, Juice doesn't care for it. Just try not to compare it to Breath of the Wild until you're done. Yeah. I'm not going to do that. I mean, I have to play it for what it is. I should have played it. I should have bought it and played it when it came out before Breath of the Wild, because after Breath of the Wild, open world games have underwhelmed me as far as the world goes. Obviously, visuals are great, but the worlds themselves, not being able to jump over simple little rocks or go up simple little inclines, is because there's a what do you call it? Invisible walls and stuff. I can't stand that stuff at this point. So I'll just try to play it for what it is. Real Gamer, what's up? What's up, man? Fly from the inside. EA was never going to truly support the Switch. Feel like they thought, or I think you're saying thought there, thought it would fail, and then when they saw it was a success, they were like, "F it." Now we have to support Nintendo. Wait, no, we don't. Pretty much, and that's what we get with FIFA. We're supporting it, but not really. We're putting the old engine. We're not giving you all the features, and even in the one game that we put on the console. So I think they feel like they can't get away with the practices they do on Nintendo, at least especially on the Switch, because it's not really built. It's not really set up for them to monetize the games the way they do on other consoles. So I think that's their biggest issue with Nintendo, and I'm fine with that. I don't need that trash, man. Like I don't need it on all my consoles. So it's all good with me. Fly from inside. It uses install base excuse. Oh, you're just finishing. Uses install base excuse. Yeah. You can't use that anymore because you supported the GameCube. You supported the N64 better, and those install bases were smaller than the Switch is at right now, and games didn't sell nearly as well on those systems than they sell on the Switch right now. So there's no excuse. There's no install base excuse anymore because Switch is right under Xbox One at this point, and you support that console wholeheartedly. So install base is not an excuse anymore. Can't be used. Timon and Pumbaa still look lame though. Yeah, they look lame. You're right. They still look like realistic animals, and that takes away from them too because they were very expressive and funny in their movements and whatnot in the original movie. So, I'm not hating on it. Go see it if you want to go see it. By all means, do. But for me, I would rather just sit home and watch the original one. I don't mind. American third-party devs and publishers are the laziest devs and publishers ever. Yes, I think major third-party devs in the West, or I think obviously when you're an indie company or a smaller company trying to come up, you put more work. I feel like you put more work into it, hopefully, and we're seeing that a lot with those games. So hopefully that's the case when you come to bring your stuff. Bring your A game. But these guys are in cruise control. Damn, lips are peeling. Activision, EA, they make so much money in microtransactions and all kinds of BS. They're in cruise control. They're like, they're too big to fail. That sucks when you talk about Wall Street and the banks. And it certainly sucks as a consumer of video games and a fan of video games that these companies feel like they're too big to fail. They'll just do whatever. And, they think we're all stupid and we'll buy whatever. And a lot of us do, but it's not because we're stupid. It's just that there are a lot of more casual gamers out there who don't pay as much attention to this stuff. There's not enough of us who, make a stink about these things, but, it won't last. They won't continue to be able to get away with what they get away with. Like I said, because we have these up and coming companies doing good things, they're just going to get bigger because we recognize, real recognizes real. You have companies like CD Projekt Red. They grow and they keep their same quality and their same game design philosophy. Then they'll start pushing those bigger companies, and that's what happens. Even THQ Nordic, like I said, they're slowly becoming my favorite Western third party with the stuff that they're doing and how they're approaching video games. And when they start, getting more momentum and people pay more attention to them, and if they keep doing it the way they're doing it and don't transition to what these other guys are doing, they'll start pushing those other guys to do better. Because we were like, hey, well, these guys do this. What's up with y'all? You can say that now to like smaller companies and won't get as much traction. But if you say it to a big company, and you're looking down on these EA and Activision, and they're still doing BS, you're like, what's up with y'all? Why y'all can't do what THQ is doing? Step your game up, son. So Fly from Inside, Crash Insane Trilogy, Crash Team Racing, Spyro, Skylanders, all are Activision support, as far as I know. Yeah, but and it's good support. I'm not saying Activision doesn't support. I don't know if it sounded like I was throwing Activision in there, because I wasn't. I was talking about EA mostly, and Activision. They bring those games, and those games are probably a better fit than what do they do? Call of Duty, is that Activision? Yeah. So, but they haven't brought their quote unquote top tier franchises over. Yeah, they'll bring over. That's what everybody's doing. That's nothing special from Activision. Everybody's doing that, bringing over their old ports or their remastered versions of old games. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think Crash Insane Trilogy is really cool. Not Crash Team Racing, but I didn't really like the original. I have it. I thought it was cheap. I thought the AI was cheap. So I don't care for Crash Team Racing as much. Spyro I did until they said I had to download part of it, and it didn't make any sense to me. So some games make sense, but a game like that doesn't make sense to me. That you can't fit, you're that inept in your design that you can't fit remakes of games from 1997, 98. You can't make those fit on a cart. I don't understand that. Crash Trilogy is different because it's not as big, but if you look at the size, it's not that much different. It's not, they should have been able to put. I mean, they couldn't even fit it on a Blu-ray, yet alone a cart. So I was not touching that. But yeah, I'm not saying Activision isn't giving support. They are, but they're not bringing their A games. Let's see. Didn't EA want to put Origin on the Wii U back when it came out? Yeah, I don't know if that was ever confirmed, but that was kind of the rumor, and that's what kind of pissed them off. With Nintendo back then, because maybe they thought they were going to be able to do that. They wanted to put Origin on Wii U and basically run Nintendo's online setup, and Nintendo wasn't down for that, and so they got pissed off and ran away and brought nothing. After, what was it? Need for Speed Need for Speed Most Wanted U, which was a fantastic game, fantastic port. I want to say it was a fantastic game. It was a fantastic port, but that was already in the works by the time they were pissed off, so they had to put that game out. They even gave a discount to it if you bought it from their site. It was half off, and that's what I did. I bought it for $30 because that was the only way EA was going to get me to buy a game new for them, because I thought they were going to support the Wii U at that time. Nobody knew the behind the scenes, so I was happy to do that. But they're they are who they are. So the God of War movie has to be animated. Yeah, I don't really want to see, if there ever is going to be one, I don't think I want to see it a live action version, because that usually doesn't turn out well. A video game, fantasy video game turned movie. No, live action movie doesn't really ever turn out well. So let's see. Investors just suck in general. Public companies suck, says EJ. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, it's about money. Like, I don't want to outright say they're finger twiddling evil people, because they invest to make money, and everybody has their idea about what makes money. And and it's all about that. If you're an investor, you don't care about. Sometimes you don't even care about the products. You just want to make a return on your investment. So I don't expect them to care and understand how it should work, but I expect the designers, the developers, the producers to understand how it works, and the executives in the company should defer to those guys, the creators, because they're the ones who are going to make you money. Not investors are going to give you money to do what you want to do with it, but the creators are the ones who are going to go out there and make you money with what they created. So you have to defer to them as well, and it's not happening as much. Casual gamers suck. Yeah. Again, I don't want to get mad at them because you can't get mad at somebody for being ignorant, unless it's willful ignorance. Like if you try to tell them something, you try to educate them and they don't want to hear it, or they don't care to hear it, then you can get mad. But if they just don't know, I'm just a guy who plays video games every once in a while. I'm going to go out and buy the yearly this or the yearly that. I don't really care about anything else. I don't expect that guy to, pitchfork, but it sucks for the rest of us. 4K sucks, says EJ. Yeah, I'm gonna wait a little bit. 4K is actually really nice, but we're gonna be moving on, I feel like, from 4K for the next couple of years. So I don't want to go and invest in a 4K TV and then in 2 years, the next thing 8K is out. But the good thing is that 8K will probably be a peak, because I don't think the human eye can see clarity beyond that from a digital image. I think that's the thing. So once we get there, maybe I'll get a really cheap 4K and won't care as much about 8K. I don't think I will. 4K looks really nice. A nice 4K monitor or television does look really nice from a source that is what do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for? That is a true 4K output. Not some checkerboarding thing. Even though, and some checkerboarding, a lot of it looks really nice too. It still looks better than 1080p. But I'm pretty content right now. I'll move on maybe in 2 years and see what's out there. Let's see. Crash and Spyro need to be in Smash, but I feel like Banjo was the last. See, I don't feel like Crash and Spyro as much because they're not. What's the word I'm looking for? Their legacy changed once they left Sony. So they don't feel like that iconic character anymore. I don't know if that makes any sense, but they don't feel the same way. And here's the Banjo ended on a great game. Crash and Spyro, not so much. They had games throughout the 2000s that were mediocre, mostly at best. So their legacy got a little stained at some point. Banjo is still revered. You can't really count Nuts and Bolts. And Nuts and Bolts isn't a bad game. It's just not a good Banjo-Kazooie game. But you can't really count that because it's not Banjo-Kazooie 3. It's not a game in the vein of Banjo-Kazooie. So the last core game in that franchise was stellar. So that's why there's so much reverence, and there's reverence for Rare in general, at least Rare with Nintendo. So yeah, Banjo is still dead. No, I think Banjo was very much alive, and I think it was proven when we got him in Smash Ultimate, and he was high on the survey for the Wii U, and that's one of the reasons he was on the radar, because he was high on that survey. I think he might have been right behind, or they. I keep saying he. I think they might have been right behind Bayonetta at the time, and Bayonetta was really popular because of the games on Wii U. So, um, you know, that's where his iconography comes from. Uh, Two stellar games. He was in a great kart racing game, and he hasn't been served in a while. Like you said, he's dead as a character as far as in games. But I think because Nintendo, somebody at Nintendo, or at least people in Nintendo, were surprised and overwhelmed by how people responded to Banjo and Smash. People were super excited, like me. I was screaming like a freaking middle school girl about Banjo Kazooie because those games hold a place in my history. So it was a big thing, and people were really excited. And I think from that excitement, Microsoft is probably going to do something with Banjo. I don't really want current Rare working on it, but I think they should hand it off to somebody who's able to do a Banjo-Kazooie type of game. Maybe they're a third-party company now, but a company like the company who made A Hat in Time, maybe put a team together because they understand. Look, I'm not a fan of the people that made that game, but I can tell that it is a great game. That's all I hear about how good it is. And speaking of that, wasn't that game coming soon to the Switch? Where is it? Wasn't it coming soon? It was December when they talked about that game coming soon, and here we are in almost August. So what happened to that? All right. Real Gamer says 4K is awesome. Yeah, it is good. Let's see. Matsu Mines says Ryu and Ken are Eastern. I must have missed somebody else saying something. Spyro is better than Banjo Kazooie. Facts. Dragons are cool. Cooler than bears. I won't get into that, but I disagree wholeheartedly. Spyro, while very charming of a game, can't touch the worlds and the gameplay of Banjo Kazooie 1 and 2. And the characters. No. Grunty is like one of the best Saturday morning cartoon villains ever made. She's just great. And, Banjo Kazooie together are great, and then offer so many gameplay mechanics. Spyro kind of just floats around, shoots his fireballs. I like Spyro. I'm not saying I don't. But they're not, if you only had a PlayStation, you might think Spyro was the greatest thing ever. But as an N64 owner, also, I had a better pick of 3D platformers. So they don't have the same reverence for me. Keys, maybe a lot of older companies have hard time keeping up. What they did in the past worked with us, but with the new generation, what worked with us doesn't work with them. I don't necessarily agree. I see where you're coming from, but I mean, I don't think new gamers want surprise mechanics. I don't think that's something they want. I don't think they want, having to purchase outfits and different colored guns in their games to be able to play them. It's just all they know. Because I could say the same thing about music. Music is terrible. Hip hop is terrible today, and it's not just because I'm old. Because I hear young people telling me that too. Funnily enough, but you go with what you know, bro. Like, this is all you know. If that's all you know, then you're gonna be quote unquote cool with it. But that doesn't mean that it works for you. It's just all you know, and you don't know better. When you come from knowing better, like I was saying about Spyro, like a lot of people love those games. They love Crash Bandicoot, the original trilogy, especially like in Europe, because PlayStation was huge in Europe. And so that was their Mario, and that was, their banjo, um, because they didn't have an N64. A lot of them didn't. But if you know there's better out there, you look at those games like, yeah, they were cool, but they weren't. There was no banjo. you know. So yeah, that's how I feel about it. But which is why the new generation sucks and they have crap taste. No, that's not fair. I just think they have so much now that they consume a lot of garbage. It's not like there's not good out there, because there is good out there. It's just that there's so many outlets now that there's so much more outlets for garbage. Think of like a console that sells a lot. I made the point that a popular high-selling console has a ton of shovelware, and it gets a lot of attention, like the Wii. The Wii has shovelware, but it gets more attention than the great games that it does have. And there were a lot of great games, but people act like there was only shovelware on the console. It's false. So there is good music out there. I'm having to work to find it, but I had to sometimes work to find the good games on Wii. So I shouldn't be hating on the fact that there is crap out there. I just have to sift through the crap to get to the good stuff, and a lot of kids do. I'm a teacher, so I talk to these kids a lot, and a lot of them are very conscious that their music is not good. They understand that. So it's not just a thing where I'm older and you're younger and your music's terrible. My music back in the day was great because it was my music. No, I think they do recognize that they're consuming a lot of brand flakes. A lot of the similar, stuff that's really not that great. And I made the joke about, they're getting recycled versions of the movies we grew up on. They're getting Lion King, and Top Gun doesn't really count because it's a sequel, but they're getting It. And It's fantastic. That's actually a remake that's great, but it's not fair because the original It was a TV miniseries, so it's not fair to compare that. But their RoboCops and Total Recalls, all that stuff they've gotten in the last 6-7 years hasn't been that good. It's a shell of what it used to be. So it's not all their fault. We're not serving them better. We're not there to guide them into good stuff too. We're not there to do that. A lot of old timers in music and film are just they're fat. They're laying up and fat, and they're not trying to push. They didn't try to push the future of their medium. A lot of guys were just about making their money and getting out of there. There are a few people out there that tried to push the future of the media, but it's not enough. And that's the problem. So it's not all these young kids' faults. It's the dads. It's the fathers of these young kids who not schooling them on what is good and what is bad. I'm schooling my kids on what's good and what's bad. And a lot of parents throw their hands up and just whatever. But you can't do that. If you want better for the future, you gotta plant the seeds. You gotta plant those seeds. So where are we? Too much of a good thing can be bad, says Sora Life Story. Yeah, PS still pretty huge in Europe to this day, but the Switch is catching up. Yeah, see the PS. You look at the remake sales of Crash and Spyro. They're in the tops every week because those guys grew up on this stuff. And it would be the same for people like me if we got, a 3D Mario trilogy. Say we got Super Mario 64, Mario Sunshine, and like Mario Galaxy as a pack, remastered. You don't think those things would be selling like crazy? Of course they would. I don't know why Nintendo just doesn't care about that kind of stuff for some reason, but but yeah, so those games were what they grew up with. There's a lot of PlayStation era kids that are on YouTube and whatnot that grew up in that era. I was already head into adulthood by the time that stuff came out. So I was a little older, but for them, that was their Super Nintendo. The PlayStation was their Super Nintendo. So, now they're adults, and you give them a remake of something they saw as iconic, they're all over it. Yeah, you don't think I would lose my mind and go bonkers for a Donkey Kong Country remaster or remake? Not even remaster, but remake. Please do that now, Retro Studios or whoever. Like, I would be all over that. I think a lot of people would. So, remake culture is really getting out of hand. I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, I want new, but the thing is, there is still a lot of new. But there is a lot of remakes and remasters. Remasters, I'm fine. I'm actually more fine with remakes than I am remasters. Remakes of games, at least, not movies, because a classic is a classic. It's there for all time. But you can actually do something to a remake of a game that modernizes it, makes it better. I don't think you really can do that with a movie. Movies are different to me. A good movie, a great movie is a great movie. Yeah, you maybe bring a black and white movie to color or something like that, but it's very, very rare that you're gonna do something good or great remaking a film. But remastering, or not even remastering, remaking a game, you can do something really good with that. I think Spyro and Crash are examples of stuff of those games warranting being around. They updated the games for modern times, and that's good. That's a great thing. That works better for when you're playing a game than when you're sitting and doing this. Because you're telling me a story visually and with words, obviously, and it doesn't work the same. So, just listen to Run. Or am I remake the culture? Or I read that already. Just listen to the Run, the Jewels, and forget mumble rap exists. Pfizer grunt. Hey, they got DuckTales, and it's actually way better than the one I grew up with. There you go. Like I said, I think that works better than in video games than it does in films, because video games are interactive. So you can do stuff, the gameplay to the controls. Obviously, controls are big. You can make the controls up to date. You can do that in games more than you can do in movies. But I think remasters need to take a seat. Like, I don't really need remasters. Remasters is, a slight bump in visuals and frame rate from a game that came out 6 years ago. I don't need those unless you're doing something new to it, truly new to it. But yeah, let's make some new trilogies, some new franchises. We've been doing it every generation. Why we have to stop now? And they are doing that. They just take longer now because they're all worried about them looking photorealistic. They make remakes because they are afraid. Yeah, I mean, it is a safety zone. It's a safe thing to do. You have a name, so you're gonna get some people paying attention because a name that people remember, and you have a basis, you have a foundation to make your game on, so you don't have to spend too much time in development doing that. So it's safe. It's a safe way. If you don't, if you don't make a ton of money on it, you're not making a loss, and if you make money on it, then it's a really big gain. So I don't mind remakes as much as remasters. I think remakes are more warranted. Like Link's Awakening is a remake, and it's a pretty big visual difference. Not really. I think it still has the same core of what the game was about, but it's obviously it's a completely new engine and new visual setup than the original Game Boy game. So that's the kind of stuff I don't mind. I think most people don't mind that. I hear people all the time talk about, I want to remaster of what is it? I just said it. Super Mario Galaxy games. Like, put those games on a remaster. You know, because we've actually already seen those games remastered. They just won't bring them to this side of the world. They're remastered on what is it? The in China on those NVIDIA tablets. At least the first one is, and Twilight Princess. We already had that on Wii U, but you know, bring those over to Switch. It wouldn't be an easy. Easy. It wouldn't be easy. It wouldn't be an easy port to do that. So yeah, we've been getting too many remasters, and I understand why I've bought into a good few, but I'm the type of person that rather have a reason to go back to an old system. Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm a retro gamer. I thought that was a weird term. It just means I play old games too. I still play my old systems. But yeah, I mean, I don't need a reason. If you look at my setup, which I'm going to be doing a room tour, and you guys can see how I have this crazy setup and everything hooked up. I still play the old stuff, and I play them on my current TV, so that's cool. Think Game Talk. What's up? What's up? Coloco, Real Gamer. Do you agree with the price of Link's Awakening? I don't agree. I mean, I don't know if I agree or disagree because it's not really that type of thing. I feel like 50 would have been much easier to swallow. They did add a new mode to the game, so that helps. But Link's Awakening is not that big of a game in the scheme of things, so that's what makes it hard to swallow as much. Not because that's what I was hoping. That's what I was waiting for. I didn't want to jump and say, "Oh, this game isn't worth it," until I knew what they added to it. So they did add the new game mode as far as the dungeon builder, which is very cool, but I don't know how robust that thing is going to be. And I would like them to maybe have some more modes in there or something. Coloco, thank you, man, for dropping the $2 in the super chat. Appreciate that, my man. Yeah, I mean, it's tough, man, because it's like, there is definitely some fanboy in there. It's like, well, I want the game. I don't want to complain about it. But you know, I see it's for me. I think because Real, your premise was 2D games, just 2D games in general aren't worth $60. I don't agree with that at all. I think some games that came out at $15 to $20 that are 2D are worth that. Because I certainly got a better experience out of those games than I got out of some major games, quote unquote, big games that I played for $60. So that's why I don't think you should judge a game based on its 2D or 3D setup. So I'm not with that premise. But as far as the scope and size and scale of the game, I think that's fair. Like I said, Link's Awakening is on Game Boy. What was that? 4 or 5 hours, maybe. I put into that game to beat it. Somewhere around there. Maybe it was a little longer. I can't remember. I mean, we're talking maybe late 90s, the last time I went through it. So there's that. But it's not that big of a game. Let me get to your comment, your question there. Coloco. Mizzah Tees, where's our Mischief Makers for? Good stuff. Oh man, I would love for them to revisit Mischief Makers, and because you guys hear me play the music to it in a lot of my videos. Maybe you don't know about Mischief Makers. It was a treasure game. It was an N64 exclusive game. I'm actually going to do a live stream playing that game because I want to do that. But I mean, it wasn't like the greatest game as far as like the gameplay or whatever. It was good gameplay, but I'm not saying it was like crazy good. The thing that makes that game legendary to me and people like me is the soundtrack is fantastic. One of the most memorable, hum-worthy soundtracks out there, and the characters were just super stinking charming and just great, and it was just a great setup for a game. The world's like the whole world aspect, the characters, it's just, I love that game. I love it to death, and I would love them to bring that game back, but will it be as good? Probably not. So is Treasure even around anymore? Treasure went on, Treasure made like the best shooters out there, 2D shooters back in the day. Sin and Punishment, the original one. I don't know if they did the sequel. They had to, right? Treasure made that. Gunstar Heroes, classic game on Genesis. So they have some great games. Ikaruga, I believe that's Treasure. They got some space shooters out there that are fantastic. So they really get at the fast-paced action stuff. And this was kind of a more slower-paced 2D 2D side-scrolling game on the N64. But it still had that kind of fast-paced feel, especially when you're doing boss battles, and some of the puzzle stuff was pretty cool. So I still feel $40 would have been great for Link's Awakening. Oh, let me see what you said up here. Do you? Oh no. Yeah. I think that's what you're answering. Yeah, $40. Of course, it would have been great. $30, $20 would have been great. Of course. But at the end of the day, part of the reason is Nintendo does have to set a value for their major franchise, and Zelda is a major franchise. So I don't think they had to set it at 60. Like I said, I think 50 would have been a good price for what they're giving us. And maybe there's more in there. I don't know. Maybe there's more to come. Maybe they'll do some DLC stuff. Who knows? But if it's just a straight up, it's not a port, but if it's straight up like the world of Link's Awakening and nothing's added to it, that game is not going to be very long. So we'll see what happens. What about reimagines? Reimagines are great. Ukulele is a reimagining, basically, of Banjo-Kazooie. You have games like, oh my god, what's the name of the game? Oh my gosh, it was basically a reimagining of Metroid or Super Metroid. What was the name of that game? It was made by one dude. Came out on the Wii U, and it's on the Switch as well. They ported it. I can't think of the name of it right now, but that game was fantastic. So reimaginings are great by like small studios or a bunch of guys get together and say, we want to make a new version of this. That's great. Hat in Time, like I said, I think is a great game, and it's a reimagining of the 3D platforming era of the PS2 GameCube. And that game worked out really well. Axiom Verge, thank you. Think Game Talk, thank you. Axiom Verge, fantastic game. That game's worth $60 as far as I'm concerned. It's a 2D side scroller made by an indie company, one dude. Like I said, I think it came out at 40, maybe even 30. But that game to me is worth 60. I would have paid 60 for it. So you can't just say it can't just be about it being 2D. It has to be more about that. Because Hollow Knight, I haven't played it yet, but from everything I hear, it's freaking amazing. And I have, friends, Juice and Clocked It, who put over 100 hours into that game. I don't know if Juice has, but I'm pretty sure Clocked It has over 100 hours into a $15 2D side-scrolling game. But because it's so big and the type of game it is and the gameplay is addictive, they put that much into it. I think that game was worth $60. If you put that kind of hours into a game, to me, it's worth $60. because it says you loved it enough to put that much into it, so it's worth it. Now, Zelda's different because you're gonna beat the game, and if there's not more to it, you're gonna be finished in, like I said, 6 hours or so. So that's the downside of it. A 2D game, but it's not about it being 2D. It's about the size of the game, the world, or whatever. So, my wife's yelling at my son because he's very loud. That kid, especially when he's playing video games. I still, let's see. What about? Oh, I read that already. Heck, even 40 setting. Nintendo really knows that the power of the IP is. I really wish. I mean, that's what it comes down to mostly. Like Story Life Story says, it's about the value to them of the IP. But I still don't think they needed to set it at $60 for it to show that they have value in their IP for this game. Because it partially feels like what they did with Donkey Kong, although that's very different because that's just a straight up port. But it feels like it's like, well, this game is new, and technically it's new, but technically it's not. It's technically it's new visually, but it's a game that I beat 23 years ago, whatever that was. So it's not a new game. They gave the Link's Awakening a total visual remake. Why wouldn't someone want to pay $60? They deserve it. I mean, I kind of feel that way. That's kind of how I feel. But, we have other games like, what was that game? The game where you fight giants from PlayStation. That game came out at 40. Oh my God, I can't believe I go blank when I get on here for some reason. It was Ico, Shadow of the Colossus. Shadow of the Colossus came out. It was a complete remake, ground up remake, and it was $40 brand new. But Shadow of the Colossus doesn't have the IP value that Zelda has. So that's where it's kind of foggy, So at the end of the day, it's up to you. If you feel like it's worth it, then you buy it. I feel like it's worth it for me to own and replay again, so I'm buying it. But I can understand where somebody might not feel like it's worth it. How long did it take the first time through, T? A lot of people will be playing it for the first time. Like I said, it took, from my memory, it's not a long game. Because remember, they built this game for the Game Boy, so they do have longer adventure games on the Game Boy. But even the Zeldas weren't built for like multi, 10-hour games. They, maybe you get 7 hours out of it if you comb it. But it's not, I'm going to say between 4 and 7 hours, depending on how you play. So that, I think a first timer might end up on the longer end, the farther end of it. But for something like me, once I start playing it, I'm going to start remembering stuff. And so I'm going to be going through it quicker, solving puzzles quicker than most people. So, I'm going to be on the 4, end of the spectrum, 4 hour end. So yeah, Matthew, that's hopefully that answers it for you. Who even owns the rights to that up anymore? It was an Enix game. So Square Enix. Oh, you're talking about, what are you talking about? You talking about Mischief Makers in Game Talk? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I was thinking maybe Square and owns it now, but who knows? Because there was another company involved, Treasure Box, if I'm not mistaken, involved with the game. So I don't know who actually owns the IP. I thought Enix was part of it too. No, it was Enix. It was an Enix game. Before Square bought them, Square Enix. So they may have acquired that IP. I don't know. I think $40 is great for that caliber game. Caliber. I'm at a loss for your adjectives, so I don't know What do you mean by that caliber? Because Zelda games deserve, for me, top money. Um, to me, it's no different than paying $60 for a remaster. If you pay $60 for a remaster, why can't you pay it for a remake? So people pay $60 for remasters. Now lately, remasters have been like that, but they're not. The remasters we've been getting lately are HD to HD. This is 240p, 240p to 1080p. Total visual difference in style. The original game came out. It was $40 on Game Boy. So they're just thinking, well, this is a console game. It has to be $60. So I can see both sides, but for me, it's like the IP has a lot to do with it as well. So man, this Creepshow series looks a lot like it's gonna be decent. There's a Creepshow series coming. Oh man, I used to love Creepshow back in the day. I was actually just watching something when they were referencing Creepshow and how cool the visuals were in that movie, especially. So, yeah, I gotta check that out. They capped Sushi Striker at $50. LOL. Now it's bargain bin priced at GameStop. Yeah, I remember thinking, but for me, Sushi Striker, obviously the IP or whatever, is not a known IP. But for me, the gameplay style didn't warrant it, because it's, it didn't warrant or $50 or whatever it was when it came out. It wasn't about the art style. It was the gameplay style that I said, well, I'm not paying $50 for that, because I don't think I'd be playing it for that long. I wouldn't get much out of it. I'm getting one kind of experience. Whereas Link's Awakening, especially if it's the first time you played it, it's an adventure game. And it's different to me than a more arcadey style game like Sushi Striker is. So, sounds like my son. I think you were talking about my kid. Reminder that Donkey Kong pricing pissed you off. Yeah, it did. It totally did. For two reasons. Nintendo obviously brought the price down on the Wii U version to $20. Now, I didn't mind them bumping it back up another $20. I thought that was justifiable, going from Wii U to Switch. But a full $60 when the game didn't even come out at $60 on Wii U was just egregious to me, and it still is. And it's a fantastic game. I love the game, and I think they would have served themselves better by pricing it better. So, yeah, Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze was an insult to Switch fans. Yep. Damn, I'm going on 2.5 hours here, so it's time to cut this bad boy. But it's been fun talking to you guys. Let's see what Matthew says. I was talking first time you ever played Link's Awakening. No guide, searching the overworld, 8 dungeons. Yeah. Again, the dungeons aren't as big. I'm gonna say 6 hours. I can't remember exactly because that was a long time ago. But my best estimation is 6 hours. 6 to 7 hours probably that I played that game. At the time, I had already run through. I was already a Zelda fan. I understood the formula of Zelda. So I had run through Zelda 1 and 2 and A Link to the Past by the time that game came out. So that helped me as well. If this is your first Zelda after, say, Breath of the Wild, maybe that it'll take you a little longer. But I had time back in those days. That's back when you only had 1 or 2 different games. I think at that time, Link's Awakening was probably my 4th Game Boy game. I had Tetris, I had Super Mario Land, and I had, what else did I have? My gosh, it was some. Uh, I'm sure it was like a licensed third party game, and then I bought Link's. I didn't buy it. It was bought for me. I think my mom bought it. Link's Awakening on Game Boy. So those were like the only games I had. So, and I didn't have a ton of games on my Super Nintendo at the time, and my Genesis I probably had. In total at that time, I probably owned 12 games, 12 to 15 games in total. Many of which I had already run through a ton of times. So I was really focusing on Link's Awakening at the time it came out. So that's how I did it. So did I complete Metroid 2 on Game Boy? No, I did not. I actually didn't play Metroid 2 on Game Boy until the late 90s. Probably 99 when I played it. So, and I never finished it. Because at that time I had more games and my focus wasn't on my handheld as much back then. So, no, I didn't finish it. And I am yet to finish it on 3DS, but that was a different reason. Well, it's similar actually because at the time it came out, I'm playing a lot more console, and but I'm gonna finish that game. I'm not like people. Some people are like, oh, I can't go back to 3DS. Yeah, I can. I can do it. So, I already read that. Matthew, we all had more time than. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I didn't have to work. I didn't have kids. I didn't have a wife. So I had more time to play games back then. And in the late 90s, I was a young man. I was with the ladies. I gave a lot of time to the women's. And that was when I was doing my hip hop thing heavy. So I was in the studio a lot, and a lot of my money was going to that. So I was busy. I wasn't playing as much video games at that time. So let's see. Ray, I played Zelda Link's Awakening on Game Boy dozens of times. So the remakes is not on. Yeah. I beat it within, I don't know, the first couple months I got it. I mean, and in total, like I said, it was about 6-7 hours maybe. And I know I beat it again in high school, so mid 90s. And then I played it. I mean, I beat it again in like 98 or somewhere late 90s. So I beat it 3 times. If I'm not mistaken, it was at least 3 times. It could have been more, but I think pretty sure it was at least 3 times. Let's see, we all had. Where am I? Too many new games like Astro Chain. Oh, Ray, I've played Zelda on Game Boy dozens of times. Remake is not on the top of my list. Too many new games. Yeah, I mean, again, you can wait, and I'm sure it'll at least drop $10 by Christmas. You can find it. I'm pretty sure. So, because Nintendo games, especially their first-party IPs, don't drop much in price. But I think it'll at least drop that, and then maybe you'll get some kind of deal. Maybe there'll be deals out there as well. You don't need to rush and get this game if you beat it. I'm pretty sure I will. I haven't pre-ordered it or anything like that. But it just I like how it looks so much that I probably want to get it. But yeah, Astral Chain, Luigi's Mansion coming out soon for me. Too soon for me to spend $60 on a 7-hour game. Yeah, I mean that makes sense. There's a ton of games coming out. You got to prioritize. So yeah, but it does look gorgeous, like you said. So it's just priority, whatever you think. So like I said, I gotta get out of here. It is getting quite late. I appreciate you guys rocking out with me. I still got 30 viewers right now. It makes me feel really good. I like that. Thank you guys. It is a Friday night. Friday nights aren't the same to me these days as they used to be. I would be out in the streets back in the day. I'd be at a club or something. But now a married man of two, with two kids, and it's a little different now. Professional. I had my time. I really did. I am very lucky to still be around with some of the stupid stuff I used to do. I'm lucky to have gotten through a lot of stupidness that a lot of people probably aren't here today because of. So I'm counting my blessings, and I'm good. I don't need that stuff anymore. So it is what it is. So thinking talk, I know exactly how that is. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I'm very lucky. So, and very content to be the old guy, not in the club. That wouldn't work for me anyway as a married man. But I had my clubbing days, man. I had great college days and nights, long nights, and great clubbing days and nights. And even back then, I was the most, what do you say, mature of my group of friends. They liked to go with me because they felt safe with me coming, hanging out and being the designated driver and all that good stuff. I was the guy that made sure everybody got home. I was the guy that made sure none of my female friends got, messed with by idiots, because that happens a lot, man. And I knew some girls that this is not really the place to get into that, but I knew some girls that ended up with some baggage, ended up with some bad stuff because they didn't have anybody there for them. And so I was not gonna have that happen to my friends and stuff. So I was that dude, the Mr. Good Advice, Mr. Make sure everybody got home safely, even though it wasn't safe for me to do that myself, because I wasn't I wasn't the most clear driving everybody home. Like I said, I did stupid things, but that was the time. It is what it is. Don't do that stuff. If you're not supposed to be driving, it. But I always felt, everybody says that, but maybe it holds true to some extent, because I never got in any accidents. I never got pulled over being stupid. So I always felt, even when I was definitely over the line, that I was okay. So, but that's all I'll say. Again, thank you guys for joining. I appreciate this. I hope you guys enjoy the uptick in views and videos I'm doing. I'm making some changes. I'm trying to push. I need you guys to help me push. I'm glad that you're here. So make sure you hit the like button before you get out of here. Make sure you share the video if you can on your Twitters and all that good stuff. Talk to if you're in groups, Nintendo groups and whatnot, make sure you say, hey, there's a guy on YouTube, Mizzah Tee. He's really funny. He has good content, man. He's a good Nintendo YouTuber. And you guys should check him out if you watch that kind of stuff. So help a brother out, help me out with this YouTube algorithm, help me navigate the YouTube algorithm. So like I said, and I mentioned it before, I'm not doing astronomical numbers in my subscribers, but unlike before in the last 8 to 9 months, where it was like I lost like 150 subscribers or something, they just kept disappearing down to like 150, and then when I would gain some, I'd lose some. It was something weird. It had to be something that YouTube was doing. It looks like I'm past that now. I have a net gain at this moment of 46 subscribers in the last month. That may not sound a lot to a lot of people, but for me and what I was recently going through, I feel like I'm on the good side of it. So I'm happy about that. But I need you guys to continue supporting me, and I'll continue bringing you good content. I have a couple of funny videos in the works. I don't like to really put stuff out on the weekend, because I don't know if you guys are paying as much attention at that time as far as like my main videos, but I will be putting stuff out tomorrow and probably something on Sunday. I'm trying to, like I said, stay in the algorithm. I'm watching my analytics. Actually, one of my videos is about analytics, which is, I think, is pretty funny. So look forward to that. But yeah, thank you guys for supporting the brother. Appreciate that. I'm trying to do bigger things here on YouTube. So that starts with you. Obviously starts with me. We bring content. And I appreciate you guys for enjoying the content and watching and all that good stuff. And also dropping me tips, man. That's I appreciate that stuff too, because that stuff goes right back into the channel and stuff. Obviously, I don't need that, but I do appreciate it. It does help me. It will in the long run, especially if I want to do this like as much as I'm doing it right now. I'm doing a lot more now because it's the summer, but I already have a plan in place to where I can keep doing this going into the fall and whatnot, and stuff like you guys dropping tips. I don't have any members right now. I'm not gonna beg for members or anything, but that stuff helps. Like I said, dropping tips, hitting the Patreon, that helps. I don't like to ask for that stuff, but it does help as far as me being able to have more time to do this, because I am a freelancer, so my output is on me as far as what I can do, and so having more revenue, I can say, well, hey, I made such and such, blah blah blah. I don't have to, I can work more on this stuff. That's how it works for me. So I appreciate that, guys. And thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate you all. See you fools next time. And it's going to be an awkward get out because I'm not set up to go. But peace out, fools.